Hi folks, welcome to the Sunday edition of I Write Radio, podcast stroke videocast. I've got Jimmy Hutton, Stuart Lockhead with me. I'm Norrie Stewart. Today we're going to talk about Cygnus, which was the dry run for a reaction to a pandemic in 2016. The Telegraph has got a bit to say about that. We're then going to have a wee talk about Cobra. It's going to be a wee talk with, well, we'll explain when we get there. Dominic Rabb on Mar this morning seems to have made a wee mistake, Jimmy thinks. And we're finally going to finish off with the Boris return. The Boris has risen, and have a wee chat about how that will affect things. So the Cygnus 2016 pandemic dummy run, Stuart.
Yes, it would appear that both the left and the right, the Guardian and the Telegraph, have raised this again. Dr. Musa Qureshi, an NHS doctor, is demanding the government publish its report into exercise Cygnus, a 3-day simulation involving government and public health bodies conducted in 2016. The Telegraph has reported that Cygnus findings were deemed too terrifying to be made public. That takes me back to the days of exercises to do with nuclear bombs. The row threatened to become a major embarrassment for the government. Anyway, the guy's got a crowdfunder going. He's got, apparently, the league, they're actually issued a legal, something legal. They got by 4 o'clock. They've got until 4 o'clock this afternoon to publish it. Otherwise, they'll be going for judicial review.
Okay.
It takes something for both the Telegraph and the Guardian to be saying it's too terrifying to be made public. Are they going to publish anything?
Is this the same guy that's looking to sue the NHS for lack of protective gear for frontline staff?
I couldn't tell you.
You don't know. Okay. Jimmy, your thoughts on this one?
My initial thought was that it might be political pushback, mate, because it's an awfully easy way to make Jeremy Hunt look like a Jeremy, basically. I think he's come across quite well as head of the Health and Social Care Committee, and he was the health minister who was sitting when this thing was suppressed. So right. I think it might be a case of Team Boris pushing back just in case, because they really hate Jeremy Hunt, the Team Boris. They absolutely despise him, and there's every, I mean, the report, I think we kind of know what it said anyway. It told us that we weren't prepared and that we needed to spend money. And the reality was there was no political will whatsoever to be spending money on what might happen because they were too busy cutting everywhere to give big tax breaks to their funders.
Well, it's not even that far back. It's not just the 10 years of austerity period. We're talking 2016. We're into Brexit at that time.
Aye, that was their only priority issue. It was Brexit, getting Brexit done. The entire government at that time was absolutely aimed at finding a way to get Brexit sorted out.
My experience on a much smaller scale of these dummy runs of disasters is that money doesn't get spent. But what actually happens is the chain of command gets tweaked. And what that normally means is they add another couple of people into the chain of command.
Right.
And they almost create cutouts between the front line and the people who hold the actual responsibility. So it becomes a chain of command tweak and a comms tweak. They decide that they need a hub or 2 hubs, or everybody should be able to communicate from the bottom to the top, not always through the chain of command. And in effect, they create confusion because you can't hold that sort of thing in your head. You know.
Well, the reality, this report told them that they would have massive shortages of equipment, particularly equipment that we have desperately needed this time.
But Jimmy,
PPE and
nobody
ventilators.
spends money, or certainly not in my experience, on what might happen. I mean,
No.
the fire brigade, which is what I'm talking about, is a good example of that. You don't employ firemen for what they do every day. You employ firemen for when you really need them. When a plane comes down, you know, when a major fire happens, that's
government
firemen.
And government don't like to employ people on that. They don't like to spend money on that basis.
Well, the FPU has spent years saying, no, we're not going to go out and paint fences. We're not going to replace light bulbs in streetlights. I mean, these are all the jobs that they want the fire brigade to undertake. Now, the FPU's argument has always been, we're not doing that because that's costing somebody else their job. And our job is to be ready to deal with emergencies.
That takes me all the way back when I was a bus driver in Glasgow, and they always had spare bus drivers at the bus garage.
Aye. You always had capacity and everything.
In case something went wrong, and that was a good shift if you were spare, because you played snooker all day.
Well, I mean, in my time in the fire brigade, and we're talking 10 years ago now, there was spare capacity, because you lose one man out of a crew, and to maintain your crew in levels, the machine came off the run.
I mean, it's like
that was a money saver in a back doorway, though.
But this is all part of the neoliberal idea about productivity and efficiency. Heathrow are incredibly proud that they run at 99% efficiency until something goes wrong, and then thousands and thousands of passengers can't travel.
Yeah.
That's not efficient. That's not an efficient way to run an airport. And yet it's 99% efficiency.
Well, that's why everybody likes 0 hours contracts. All employers like it. Because what it means is you pick up the phone and you tell somebody who's not being paid that you need them in 10 minutes. That's why they like it. They only pay for the people that they need in situ on the day. It's no good if you're an employee, but it's fantastic if you're an employer, because they have all these people to take up the slack.
Well, it's going to give us something to look out for at 4 o'clock, see if this judicial review goes ahead. Apparently, the department, some government department, was asked about this issue and said, "Oh, it's under a legal, there's a legal case going on, so we're not going to comment."
Nothing that they were promising to publish before and during the election has been published. No Russian report. You mentioned another one, Stuart. The Scottish Affairs Committee hasn't been constituted.
No, that's another one. Let's not go there today.
So there's, they're basically ignoring everything it suits them to ignore.
And making sure that they undergo no scrutiny whatsoever.
And let's not mention the B word. Basically, nothing's been reported on Brexit at all at the moment.
Do you think Dominic, Mr. Cummings, is behind it all? Is he the overarching Satan that some of the press are now making him out to be?
Well, yes, he is, but he is and he isn't. He's the spokesperson for all the oligarchs behind him. He's the face. I mean, you've got Steve Bannon waving his magic wand. You've got the Koch brothers. You've got the Elliots. They're all behind this guy with their money.
I don't agree with you. I think Dominic Cummings is another kind of beast. I don't think he's a creature of the elite. I think he's his own creature, and all the more dangerous for it, because I don't think we've any idea what his intentions are.
Right. Well, look, the basic philosophy is, or the ideology even is, catastrophe. It's catastrophe. They want a catastrophe. They believe that a catastrophe is good for the world, and they'll become even richer.
Well, they've got one.
Well, there you go.
And it had nothing to do with them. It's disruptor, I think.
There's a point. We're going to move on, I can tell. There's an awful lot of religious cults and they're bigger than cults in America. They're huge churches that believe in the end of the world. Armageddon's coming, and they're part of the elect because they go to church every Sunday, and they'll all go to bloody heaven.
Calvinism. Can't even
They're the
Calvinism.
they're the ones that were sitting on Saturday swigging Domestos cocktails.
Excuse me, I went for Jay's fluid. That was my tipple.
Oh, Jay's making fluid now, is she? Sorry.
That's an in joke.
That's an in joke. Okay, guys, we're trying to keep it tight from now on.
As tight as three haverers can, anyway.
We've mentioned Dominic, the Satan of number 10, Cummins already. There was a big stitchy this week about him attending the what are they called, sage meetings.
Sage meetings, yeah.
My point here is I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see why somebody that's giving you advice shouldn't be allowed to sit in the room and listen. I have a problem if he's making decisions because he's not elected or an expert in the field. But I don't see anything wrong with him sitting in the room.
I only have one problem with Dominic Cummings is that that he's anonymous. He's called number 10 says, and he won't appear before any accountable committee.
I'd have a problem with attending the meeting, Norrie. He bullies and belittles people. He's a shithouse. That's how he's made it. That's how he's made it to where he's made it to. So for him to sit in on that, for him to sit in and listen to that committee isn't an issue. But if he's interjecting in any way and putting down scientific opinion or having any input as to which scientific opinion we'll listen to and which we don't, then he shouldn't be there.
Well, so somebody made a point, whether he opens his mouth or not, the very fact he's there can be intimidating to people that want to disagree with whatever his stance is.
Well, particularly given that he's already sacked a few, including a previous chancellor's top aide who disagreed with him. So,
well, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't see how in the real world you can object to somebody who's handing advice to the PM being in a meeting like that. How much influence he should have is arguable, but
perhaps if the meeting was that important, maybe the PM should attend himself. Oh, wait a minute, he can't.
Which brings us neatly to the Paul Hutchin piece claiming that Nicola Sturgeon failed to attend 6 Cobra meetings.
I don't know whether that's true or not, is it?
Well, apparently 3 of the meetings that he claims she didn't attend, she wasn't invited to.
I mean, I don't know much enough about. I mean, does the Prime Minister attend every Cobra meeting? Apparently, no. I mean, I don't. No. I'm not an expert.
I think the problem here is that the record is failing badly, and Paul Hutchins needs to come up with stories. And this is just. It's a crap SNP bad story that had started to unravel almost as soon as it hit the airways, and it only grew arms and legs this morning because Good Morning Scotland punted it out there as if it was really important.
Well, I remember Jean Freeman being asked about Boris's attendance, and on the back of that, asked about Sturgeon's attendance. That's Nicola Sturgeon's attendance, and my memory is that Nicola Sturgeon had not attended one meeting that she was invited to because it was the remit of the health secretary who attended. So Jean Freeman herself attended. So there's a big difference between not going to one meeting and not going to 6 meetings. And I would rather think they've played a good game from the podium. In these press conferences, they've not really put a foot wrong. So I think Jean Freeman's figures will be more accurate than Paul, I'm the greatest political editor in the world, Hutchison. I keep calling him Hutchison. Hutchin.
Just Hutchin. I mean, I love the way he's now been named the Scottish Political Journalist of the Year. It just goes to show what a bunch of shocking hyenas we've got for political journalists in Scotland. If he's the best that can manage. What
was the story? That there was one particular story, and it was a non-story. It wasn't a political story. It was a hatchet job. I can't remember what it was.
Well,
Anyway.
there's one simple question I want to ask everybody that's listening. Right, we know that 50% of the population of Scotland would vote for independence tomorrow. How come, where's the 50% of the journalists in Scotland that support independence? And no wonder their papers are going down the tube.
Well, the media have decided that they will do their master's bidding, which is fine, that's who pays their wages. But when their master's bidding causes them to lose their jobs, I do hope they don't bleat too loudly.
Well, my position on this has never changed. I don't know who supports independence amongst our journalists and who doesn't. That simple. I have no idea. Do you? Can you tell me categorically that XY is not a supporter of independence? Didn't vote?
That is not possible. It's not possible, Nori. Of course it's not possible. But I could give you a list of I'm building a list up at the moment anyway, just to ask them all more or less that question I asked everybody else.
I would agree that their masters are unionists, especially in the printed press.
And some of them, the invective that they write, they have to be, Norris. The way that they choose to write and the way they choose to speak about people, they have to be. You couldn't just make up that invective because your gaffer wanted you. You've got to feel it.
Remember, every piece written has to go past an editor. I'm just not prepared to point the finger and say you are. I mean, there are certain ones I'm pretty sure. What's his name from the Telegraph?
Simon Johnson.
Oh,
Cockers.
Cockers. I mean.
Well, he's actually been quite saying nice things about Nicola Sturgeon, but that's another story.
Well, so I'm quite prepared to accept that they write drivel, unionist drivel, but I'm not prepared to say they're all unionists. Sorry. That's me going to get pelters.
Well, no, I think a considerable number are, mate, or they wouldn't have got the job in the first place. When you're working for a unionist newspaper with a unionist owner, I'm pretty sure that when they're checking out your stuff, when it gets down to a short list of, say, 4, I would think 3 out of the 4 minimum would be unionist writers of unionist persuasion.
I do tend to think the ones that I would be generous to are old school. They've been there a while. I'm not sure it applies so much to the young team.
I could name a few of them, but I'm not going to because they're the good guys.
Okay, moving on. Dominic Rabb. Jimmy, you had a wee bee in your Mohican about that.
I'll just quite check. Thanks for that, mate. I'll just exactly check his wording. He was on Mar and he said that the government are confident that deaths in care homes are dropping at the same rate as the deaths in the country. Now, what I wanted to point out, they can't possibly be confident of that because they don't have the figures. They can't publish the figures. The figures for death rates in care homes in England and Wales are published 2 weeks out of date because they don't have up-to-date data. So is he telling us that he does have that data and doesn't want to release it? Or is he telling us that this is a Matt Hancock job, he's just made that up on the spur of the moment and spat it out there, and that we're just to forget that he said it?
Well, somebody's not doing their job if he's not getting daily updates of the deaths in care homes. Somebody is not doing their job.
But they tell you they can't provide us with that data. Strange enough, given that Scotland can provide that data on a weekly basis and has been for the last 3 weeks, I'd have thought England and Wales would have some way of possibly providing it.
I wouldn't claim that the data will be robust, but he'll have a good idea on a day-to-day basis. I mean, if there's a care home that suddenly gets 30 deaths over a 4 or 5 day period, he'll want to know about it, or he's a fool if he doesn't.
You would hope so.
You know.
But given what appeared in the Financial Times last week, and I mean, obviously it's last week, so these figures are out of date now, but deaths in England were running at about 18,000, and the Financial Times had them up at 43. They were putting another 25,000 people who had died in the community onto that.
Well,
Uh,
as we
be
keep saying,
interested.
the deaths in Europe are running in the 40s.
Mhm.
Anywhere between, I think Spain's running at about 47%, and the lowest I've seen is about 41. So if, as was claimed today on Scottish politics, the deaths in care homes in Scotland are a third, call it 35%, Scotland
Mhm.
are doing not bad at that.
They're claiming that the deaths in English care homes are running about, I don't know, something about 15% or something. It's an average across Europe is closer to 40%.
It is ridiculous. Aye, you've also got evidence from certain people come out saying that 19 deaths in one care home, and only 2 of them mentioned COVID on the death certificate. The other 17 listed other reasons, and you're like, really? Because if COVID was on, if that was in Scotland, the 19 deaths would all have COVID mentioned on the death certificate, specifically for that reason, that they want to report as much as possible.
The Scottish figures are certainly, if COVID is suspected, as a contributing factor.
And they're very up to date. So Wednesday they'll be announced, and they'll be.
Well, they're a week. They're a week out of date.
No, they're 3 days out of date.
3 days, Norrie. It's up to this morning.
Yeah, up to this morning, reported on Wednesday.
Oh, right. I thought they were fully 7 days.
No,
okay.
just 3 days.
Okay.
So I'll be interested to see if anybody comes back at Rabb on that assertion, because I mean, I think there was, to be honest, I think Jean Freeman made a wee faux pas as well when she was interviewed on Gordon Brewer's programme, but it'd be interesting to see if any of them get picked up.
Was this the 20 and 80% thing?
Yeah, I think she just misheard what Gordon Brewer was saying to her when she was saying that.
Aye, because what Gordon Brewer asked her was what percentage of staff in NHS have been tested, and she said,
aye, and it can't
well,
possibly be 80.
Aye, what she meant was 80% of tests have been done on
But then there was also
NHS staff.
But there was quite a, shall we call it, a snarly connection between the two of them. The tech wasn't working particularly well that day.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So, I mean, I don't think we can say anything confident that anything we heard was robust.
Oh, but I think we can be fairly sure that somebody else can say something about it.
Well, I'm pretty sure that somebody will have a dig at making Jean Freeman look like a donut, but whether they actually make it stick or not is another one.
Well, no, she's very good at what she does.
Stuart, Dominic Rabb.
No, not me, but Dominic Rabb.
I thought you might have an opinion.
No, well, what somebody else said, no, I have nothing to say about Dominic Rabb. He's just a stew. He's like a puppet.
I actually thought he performed quite well on Mar this morning.
I can only watch these people for a certain amount of time without throwing stuff at the TV. I'm perfectly honest. It's not new. You know that.
Aye. Well, is he due to go under a bus, I suppose, is really what the question I would want to ask.
Well, the question I want to ask is what's going to happen tomorrow? Will there be a gold coach and 6 white horses pulling Boris Johnson into Downing Street tomorrow?
You just couldn't wait for it to be introduced, could you? You just couldn't wait.
He had to go early, Norrie. He knew it would annoy you.
The Hallelujah chorus outside number 10.
Look, let me explain. It's only going to take one sentence. Today, when Rabb was being interviewed, everybody in his ante knew that Rabb had already had a 3-hour meeting with Johnson before he went on telly. So, I mean, I looked at him and I thought, right, it's all about Boris's bulk return tomorrow.
Well, I think I'm going to have to put my hands up and say I'm wrong. I'd always thought Boris would hang out until they had a date to lift the lockdown. So that would be his big thing. He would walk out onto the podium tomorrow and say, on the of April, we will be lifting lockdown. It looks like I was wrong.
Aye.
And that's only happened once before.
I should. You're holding yourself to fortune there, Norrie.
Well, the last time I was wrong, it turned out I was wrong about being wrong.
I'm pretty sure your missus and the family would maybe disagree. I'm sure you've been wrong on the odd occasion, mate.
No, it's never happened.
Never happened.
Yeah, well, I think tomorrow could be quite entertaining actually, because the morning press tomorrow will be laughable. You like to see your Telegraph and your Daily Mail and the Express. They're going to have all kinds of bells and whistles attached to the return of Boris. The reality is, he's walking back into a government that performed poorly when he was leading it, has performed worse since he's had his wee hide and seek competition going on, and it will probably perform pretty badly with him at the helm again, because the only thing these people are interested in is Brexit. Boris has never been, what was it he calls himself? He's not a details man. He was only interested in getting that job for having the job title Prime Minister. He's clearly not up to it, and frankly, I expect Boris to last until early next year. I think people within the Tory party are already discussing who will be the next Prime Minister.
Oh, well,
and it will not be one of the people that you expect that are in cabinet at the moment.
Well, that was another serious story the other day, and possibly late on Friday. So it kind of missed all the main headlines.
What was that? Murdoch?
Murdoch's decided that Boris's time is up. It's just a matter of when.
The presumption, because of the piece the Times rose that was so critical.
I think the fact the 22 committee the executive of the 22 got together last Thursday, and then on the Friday night, that's the kind of briefing that was going out to the press for the Saturday papers. That's an interesting piece of timing.
I'm not sure about this, because to use a sporting analogy, he's had a hell of a half time to regroup. I mean, he got out just before the peak. He's had a long time to sit and think about his strategy. I'm not sure he won't come back with a bang. I have to be honest. I mean, if nothing else, Boris knows how to win a competition.
What kind of bang has he got? Oh, but come on, mate. This morning he was quoting Cicero, and he even quoted Cicero out of context. That's the kind of man he is. He's an intellectual snob who thinks that his degree in classics makes him clever, when in reality he got a shit 2-1, and his family probably bought that.
But the thing is, Jimmy, he's not been quoting Cicero while he's been at that podium. You know, he's been man of the people, if a bumbling idiot. And I'm going to hold fire on this, because I don't trust him not to make a good fist of the PR, the spin. I don't trust him not to make a good job of that.
Well, he's surrounded by spin doctors, and right now they're still scared to tell the people of the United Kingdom how many people are dying. So what does that tell you? It tells you that they're a big bunch of shitebags with not a clue as to how to let people know that 40,000 people have died in this, no 20,000.
Well, I'm going to keep my powder dry till I hear what his new 3-word slogan is.
Oh, they brought that back. They brought that back, Norrie. They brought back Ramp It Up. That's just came back this week, and only in the last couple of days, because clearly they realised that everybody was getting hacked off with it. But Dominic used it a couple of times this morning. It's been used by Michael Gove. So clearly, Mr. Cummings is he's not come up with a new 3-word slogan yet. So
well, they'll be keeping it for Boris himself.
Oh, maybe.
Make Britain great again. Make Britain late again. Make Britain blue again.
I mean, to be honest, they can say anything they want. We've had Tories for weeks standing behind a bloody podium that says protect the NHS. If they've got a brass neck to do that, they'll say absolutely anything.
Right, guys, last couple of minutes. Anything anybody would like to cheer us up with?
Blasphemy laws, I like to mention. I know it's a bit personal. It's surprising I've never been prosecuted, to be honest. It takes me back to when I was 16 and running the church youth club. And I realised I didn't believe in God, so I told the minister, and he says, "Didn't tell anybody else." That blasphemy, that surprised me, because I knew they were going to make a change in the law. Our Justice Secretary, MSP Hamza Yusuf, said the law in Scotland would be modernised. So this is a hate crime. A new law will offer wider protection against race, sex, age, and religious discrimination. But on the way, blasphemy is to be decriminalized. And the last person that was charged was 175 years ago. And I think he was a bookseller in Edinburgh.
Well, for it to still be on the statute books makes it laughable.
I have a memory that it was used in a political context in Scotland at some point, and I can't remember how, but somebody got transported because of the blasphemy laws.
1842, they would still, yeah, you're probably right, they were still transporting then.
But it was to get rid of a political problem for the elite, as I remember. But I'm grasping at straws there. I've seen very little that's been funny at all this weekend. And I don't think Boris is going to cheer me up any either.
I'd like to have a go at Transmit Festival. They did a SNP bad when they announced, don't forget, you've got thousands and thousands of kids have all bought their tickets to go to the Transmit Festival. And they were, so when they announced that they were taking the decision to cancel it, in light of the announcement by Scotland's First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, not that there was a bloody virus, it was all the First Minister's fault. I'm
sorry, I read the announcement, and you've got to be a bit of a cybernat to take that. It was just worded unfortunately, as far as I'm concerned. So I will not be joining your pile-on.
I didn't care, mate. It's a bunch of Ouija's that listen to shite music going to a shite festival in Glasgowland. Frankly, it means that there's less bobbags in town that weekend. So for me, they can have the bloody thing on.
Oh, dearie.
And on that note, the Ouija hating Mohican has spoked. We'll call it a day, I think, boys. Thanks for being on, Stuart Lockhead, Jimmy Hutton, and we'll no doubt see you all on Monday, folks. Thanks for listening. Cheers for now, guys.